Okay, well, I sent you guys the questions ahead of time because I didn't want anybody to get freaked out that you were going to get asked something bizarre or hard. As you can see, it was all real easy stuff. So we're just going to work our way through the questions. And the first question, I really would rather do the second question first, because I'll tell you, when we had our last team meeting of the development team, whose idea it was to meet with you, we're all saying, what possessed these people to join Sistrum in the middle of a pandemic? I mean, what really were they thinking? So I'm just interested in what made you want to join now at this particular time. Anybody?
Probably easiest for me to answer. You were in need of a pianist. It was very simple for me.
So
I didn't
true.
actually think we were going to meet at all this year, but yeah, if you don't jump on something, someone else gets there ahead of you.
Very true.
I don't have a very good answer for this one, other than I had already planned to do research with Sistrum. I had volunteered with Sistrum before, and I get, I never know how to say, to talk about maybe like the silver linings of the pandemic. That's not right because it feels wrong, but the fact that I've been able to participate remotely has been a huge gift, for many other reasons, which we'll get into with your other questions.
Okay, thank you. Glenna or Mallory?
Yeah, so first I apologize for my camera sometimes swaying. My cat is an enormous troublemaker and she keeps rubbing up against the tripod that I have my phone on. So once in a while it starts tipping. But so I am, I run a small Facebook group for Lansing area fans of true crime. And Emily, I'm going to butcher her last name because I've never actually heard it said out loud, but yes, she made a post in our group saying, I'm a part of this choir and it's a really amazing thing. And we're about to start our new semester. If you're looking for something new to do, here it is. And you don't have to try out this year because it's all over Zoom. So just come and have fun. And it's really unique and it's a good group of people. And being a student for so long, a lot of my community is very dispersed, right? Because everyone graduates and moves away to their new jobs and all of that fun stuff. So I've been looking for more community, more connection here in Lansing, since a lot of my friends from grad school have done amazing things and gotten amazing professorships at great universities that aren't here. And I used to play the cello in high school, and I was a part of a choir for my first year in college when I thought I was going to be a performance major in like all of the things. So I've really missed music in my life with a group of people and not just singing to myself in my car.
Thank you. Thank you. And really, you're to be congratulated, all of you, for joining at this time. But Glenna, especially, you jumped in and served on the board. So I think that's amazing as a brand new person. So very much appreciated. Thank you for getting involved. That's great.
Yeah, well, it's
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I was just gonna say, starting the rehearsals, I was like, I don't actually get to talk to anybody. Like, I love the singing, but I don't get to talk to anyone. So maybe the board would be a good opportunity to start talking to people. So
it really is. That's what working on the committee with the development team is the only time I get to talk to anybody in Sistrum too. So it's been good. And Mallory, how about you? What made you want to join now?
Yeah, so partially because it was virtual. I mean, there's a lot of scheduling things that just worked out because I'm not working and I'm at home, and other activities that I would be doing outside of the workday that maybe would conflict, they weren't happening. So there was that scheduling piece, but more than anything, I knew if I didn't have some kind of music outlet, like my soul would slowly wither away. Like this has been my life forever, and not teaching it and not participating in it and not having my life revolve around it. I was like, so this really has been amazing to be a part of. And yeah, it was the outlet. It was the only one. I mean, aside from making music in my own house, you know, with my kids or playing piano or clarinet, I mean, this was it. So yeah, that's how it worked.
That's very interesting. Actually, I can tell from some of your answers, the pandemic actually in some ways was a positive thing for some of you to join, either because you had more time or you lived thousands of miles away or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. It had an upside for some of you. Now I'm going to circle back and go to the first question, which was, how did you hear about Sistrum or learn about Sistrum in the first place? Mallory, you mentioned that you heard about it from your Sarah, who teaches with you.
Yeah.
So that was the first you'd heard of it.
Yeah. And I've lived in the Lansing area for 10 years. So, and not to say, but I mean, like I had said, I was more in the instrumental band world. And so sometimes those don't overlap, which maybe they should more, but anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, so when she talked about it, the way she talked about it at lunch, actually we ate lunch together most days, and she just enjoyed the time. But the music, she showed me some of her music and I was like, oh, hey, like, you know, this is real stuff. This isn't fluffy, like community choir stuff. And so I think that also pushed me more to say, you know, because sometimes like for band, like if I play Another Sleigh Ride again, or like if I play The Stars and Stripes Forever, like one more time, my brain will explode. So like you need a little challenge. So I felt that in Sistrum. Like Meg gets us singing. I'm excited to sing in person. Like,
Yes.
so anyway, yeah. She was excited about it, and so that got me excited too.
That's great. And I just have to say that we actually did sing Sleigh Ride for one Christmas concert. Not my favorite piece either by a long shot, let me just say. So once in a while we have to do one of those. So
Oh, of course. No, I'm being facetious.
right.
But
Yeah,
you know,
no.
I mean, the repertoire was there. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand. And how about you, Glenna? You heard about it in your true crime group. Was that the first you knew about it?
Yeah, which is surprising to me because I'm actually friends with Julia Gibson through grad school.
Oh.
So I suppose it's just not something she talked about very much with us. And like I said, you know, with communities really being in flux, you know, first through college, then through grad school, people move away. I just never got plugged in any other way. And so the pandemic, I think, had a really interesting way of people inviting other people in, especially through social media, and saying like, you know, why not just put it out there? So Emily did that with our group. And I remember she also mentioned that it was a very social justice oriented group, singing a lot of songs about social justice and women's rights, which was, you know, a really big appeal to me because that's something I think about and work about and talk about every day.
Great. And Molly, I know you used to live in Lansing, so at some point you learned about Sistrum. How did you find out about us?
Well, I used to work at the MSU Museum, and there were a lot of members there who worked there, and so one of my very good friends, she and her wife used to be either Sistrum wives or Sistrum friends, you know.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, Julie Levi Weston, who is still in the chorus, she's constantly singing at work, and so, you know.
Why am I not surprised?
Right. Yeah. So I heard about it through both of both of them, and also Lynn Swanson, who used to be in the chorus as well.
Mhm.
So
Thank you. And Rebecca, your experience was a little different because you were applying for a position.
Yeah, and I'm sure I must have heard about it through various contacts I've had for networking, but I actually went digging through the bowels of my emails and I can't find who told me about it originally, and sadly I can't remember.
No problem.
but-
Okay.
Short answer, networking.
Yeah. So what is your past musical experience? Some of you guys have touched on it a little bit. Is there anything more you want to say about choirs you sung in, instruments you played, anything like that?
I kind of fell into music in a weird way. All of my friends were in band, and I didn't want to play a band instrument for some reason, but I wanted to be involved in that world. So I joined marching band with the color guard and decided to spin flags. And I joined, what was it? I think the summer before my sophomore year. There goes my camera again. And 3 of the other girls already on the color guard played the cello in the orchestra. And so they were always talking about orchestra. And I started listening to a little bit of cello music, and my dad owed me a big favor. So I said, Dad, I want you to buy me this very expensive piece of wood. And he did. So I really jumped right into it and really fell in love with that, and ended up teaching myself more or less, and getting to first chair by my senior year. And I was practicing like probably an unhealthy amount, but it was what brought me a lot of joy. So like 6 hours a day, most days. My other classes suffered, but oh well. And then I did a little bit of singing in high school and leaned into that more that first year of college with my, I took a class in singing and then also joined like the volunteer college choir.
Nice. Molly, are you, do you have past musical experience?
yeah, well, I grew up maybe similar to Glenna, playing the violin in the classical context. And when I came to college, I kind of threw that all away and started playing folk and country music. And so in that kind of music, is, I'm sure you all know, improvisation is valued. And to me, it's a very social thing too. You play with other people and you play off of each other, not only instrumentally, but like singing harmonies as well. And so coming to Sistrum has definitely been a challenge, being able to hear my part remotely, and learn it remotely, and figure out how it fits in with the other parts, in the context of like singing with recordings. But I will say, and this is for the development team, Sistrum, I think one of the really wonderful things about Sistrum is that, and particularly you, CJ, is that the leaders of Sistrum offer so many different ways of learning, so that it's really accessible to many people. So for example, listening to the recordings of the parts has been really helpful in learning if, if I'm not particularly strong at reading a complex score. So I think the variety of ways that Sistrum, like the variety of pedagogies, I guess, Sistrum has made it a really accessible chorus.
It's nice to hear. Thank you. How about you, Mallory? Sounds like music's been a big part of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I started playing clarinet when I was, 9, maybe in 5th grade. And but before that, music was, no one in my family is super musical. And so it was just something that I was always into. I had a keyboard and I was always figuring out, you know, like Jurassic Park, and like I'm like do do do, and my parents are like, oh, you just heard that like 5 minutes ago. I'm like, I don't know. And so, you know, I would just figure, and then that was like my thing. And so then of course to join band was that was a natural thing to do. And then I grew up in Chicago area, and so we had a really big marching band that went nationally and all that, and that's what kind of got me really rolling. And then, you know, when I was trying to decide what to be as an adult, I just knew that if I had music in my life every day, it would be like, how can I go wrong and get paid for it? Maybe like, all right, like I'll do that. And so, you know, there were other things like I was like, oh, maybe medicine, or, you know, and I'm like, I want to just like love every minute of my day. That sounds good. So it's been great. I mean, education has its things, but music, teaching children music is the best job, I think, in the world. So at least I got that going. But yeah, so that's where all that came from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Rebecca, also a big part of your life.
And she doesn't have the best job. I do, because I don't have to be in charge. No. Yeah, well, actually, there's a fair amount of, yeah. I did actually teach elementary music for a while, but it was not the best fit for me. But I don't know. So when I was small, you know, my parents took me to church. I don't think I was even one yet. And they picked me up from nursery one day, which was right next to the preschool classroom. They get me home and I start singing. And they're like, what is she doing? Did you teach her that? No, I didn't teach her that. Did you teach her that? No. They asked the nursery worker, and they're, oh yeah, she's been doing that for weeks. So my parents thought it over, and they thought, well, what could be more natural than getting her piano lessons when she's older? So that's what they did. And well, I guess it kind of took. So
I would say, did you study piano performance in school?
no, well, yes and no. This meeting has been
Oh, good.
upgraded. Okay, all right.
Very
Yeah, I
happy
got
to remove the 40-minute time. I got a 40-minute time notice. Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
What did we ask? What did I study in school?
piano.
For undergrad, I was actually dead set on music education, because I really saw at that point in my life, there were two paths. You went education or you went performance. I am not really good enough to do performance, and I don't want that life. Which you have no life. If you're a concert pianist, you have no life. I mean, like there are compensations that they're amazing. But that wasn't me. So I thought, well, I guess I better be a music teacher. And I loved my schooling. And then I got into teaching, and it was extremely stressful. And I mean, it's probably stressful for everybody, but like there's a certain amount of, like, you can only act, like everybody can act outside of what is the most natural for them for at least limited amounts of time. The longer you have to do that, though, it takes a toll. And it was taking a toll physically, but I didn't really know what else to do with myself. So I sort of, I thought, well, I mean, like, I don't really know anything else. So I took an online course for medical transcription, which was completely outside anything I'd ever done before. Started doing that for a while, was not really making enough money to get by at all. Had to move back in with my parents, which was, I love my parents, but that was humiliating. Like, it's one thing if you're doing it to save money or for companionship or whatever. Doing it because you're not cutting it at adulting is not fun. But while I was going through that process, I was back by where I went to undergrad again, and found out they had a need for collaborative pianists. So I'm like, okay, I'll go back to my roots. I actually really enjoyed that. It's nothing like teaching. I'll get back into that again. Started working with one of the vocal studios, and was just really loving it. And I mentioned to the teacher, gosh, I wish I could just do this all the time. And he's like, why don't you go back and get your master's degree in collaborative piano? And I said, come a what? So that's what I did. So that's the performance part of my education degree. I forget the actual name of the degree. It's kind of a highfalutin mouthful that I thought was kind of ridiculous, but what it boiled down to was master's in piano performance, collaborative keyboard.
Interesting. Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
So yeah, so that was probably a longer answer than you were looking
No,
for.
it was
Sorry,
fine. I mean,
No.
all good. You know, this brought something else to mind, especially what Molly said. And so I'm going to throw a question at you that wasn't on the list after I said I wasn't going to do that. But it's because Molly had mentioned one of the challenges was learning the piece, learning some of the complex pieces when you're not hearing people sitting next to you in a rehearsal room. So I just want to ask you, what did you find to be the biggest challenges this year, being new and practicing virtually? And maybe also, what was the best part for you? Who wants to go?
I think I have an answer. Oh, sorry, Glenna, you should.
Oh, you can go. That's fine.
Well, I think connection to the music. Honestly, that's something I was completely surprised by. There are some pieces I can't even sing the whole thing of, that like make me cry every time, which is not something that ever happens with me. At the same time, I kind of like lost my place of what I was saying, because I think it is such an emotional thing. I think challenge wise though, so I guess I'll just use as an example, like I Have a Voice, I think is one of my favorite pieces. And in particular, the section like Thunder Catches My Heart, that I love that. And yet everything else, because it's a challenging piece, I think, in my opinion, musically, it has been really hard to know like how to sing that kind of thing. So I think the joy is like a connection to the music, and then challenge is learning the music as well.
Very well said. Thank you. Glenna?
Yeah. So for me, one of the challenges I've had has been singing as an alto too. So when I sang in college, I was a soprano. I could go between soprano 1 and soprano 2. So I was used to not only the higher range, but generally having the melody. So switching to generally just a harmony part that's also in a much lower range has been a little bit of a challenge. I kind of just guessed at where I would be now. I've found that I can still get up to those soprano ranges, but on my first day when Meg was like, what do you want to sing? I was like, well, I smoked cigarettes for like a pack a day for a while, and I think that's brought my voice down. So let's go alto. And she's like, we need alto twos. Can you do that? I was, why not? Sure. So even though it's been so long since I sang, it's still been an adjustment. And yeah, I would also say one of the joys has been really connecting with the music. Music in my mother's house, which we just recorded. I think I'm probably the last person to get my submission in because I'm an enormous procrastinator, but that was one I really connected with. I was surprised in the recording of it, I didn't cry, because every single rehearsal we get to the line about when my mother died and just waterfalls, and my mom's still with me, so I don't know, but still. And then, just I find myself singing little bits of all of our songs throughout the day, not even when I'm trying to, they just pop into my head and bring a real smile to my face. So that's been a big thing to celebrate for me.
Thank you. Mallory or Rebecca?
Yeah. Glenna, that reminds me. So it's interesting learning choral music in home with two kids because they also learn the music. I mean, sometimes they're like going up to bed, but they can hear me. So my 3-year-old, when we were practicing what happens when a woman just around the house, what happens when a woman, he's just saying, I'm like, yeah. And then my husband would be like, what are you saying? Because 3. So it's like, what is he saying? What are those words? I'm like, oh, it's what happens when a woman. And like, I'm like, so like Rebecca, I know you say start them young. I've seen you say that about, start them young. Like, I think that's so cool. Like, what a joy to be able to share that with my kids in a more I guess intimate way, because usually I'd be gone. I would learn it. They would come to the concert and have to like eat gummy bears the whole time to be quiet, and they would not really know what's going on. And so how cool is that? So that's been interesting. Challenging, I would say probably those videos. Man, I don't know. I'm sure like a lot of you, like I'm just such a perfectionist, and then it's only you. So I'm like, well, that was terrible. I was like a half step off on one note. Redo. And so it just like took forever. And so I feel like I give all of us so much credit for doing these, and they turn out so well. With all the editing and everybody just doing it, like just like Mike's like, just do it. Because when we do it, it's like, wow, it happened. But I think that was a challenging and kind of a step out of the box for me. Even as a musician, I'm a musician, but not that kind of musician. So yeah.
I agree with you, by the way, about the recording. I too am a perfectionist, and it took me many, many, many takes, and it still wasn't perfect. So,
not good enough. Still not good. No, but it's okay.
No. And Rebecca, how about for you? You haven't really gotten to accompany us, really.
No, and that is, oh gosh. I mean, so I said collaborative keyboard, and I really love doing it, and not all pianists like to do that. They're like, no, I want to do my own thing, and I don't like doing that. I love making music with other people, and I feel like this whole year with doing the Zoom stuff, I feel like I've taken a pretty big step back from making music, and I'm producing a product. Now, I mean, on the flip side of that is I have not done video recordings. My recordings are audio, which means nobody can see if I completely monkey up one section. I can redo that section and I can splice it in, and nobody knows. so that's kind of been good for my ego, if nothing else. But then I think about it, especially with Sistrum, with like with Livingston County. I've worked with Kelly. I have a fairly decent idea what she'll do in a given situation if I make a recording for her. Same with Claire at Novi. But I've never worked with Meg. And I, like, for example, oh, what's the song? I'm hearing the intro and the piano in my head, and I can't remember what it's called. It's the tough one. And there's accelerandos, and I'm like, okay, now I have to balance guessing what Meg's going to do with this versus, okay, how do I make this doable for people who are not seeing a conductor, and like how and trying to reproduce a recording that can be sung with, that can be followed, even though you're not getting a lot of help from me or anybody. And that's it. Oh gosh, and it's completely different. On another flip side, it's been really good for my playing. It's really, we all hate to do it. Vocalists, especially, you hate going back and listening to yourself on recording. And it's the same for pianists. I was like listening to myself, oh gosh, Dr. Peterson always told me I had heavy thumbs, and now I'm hearing it. Now I can't unhear it. Oh, ooh. So it's changing the way I play. I hope for the better. So, those silver linings, find the good things where you can. This year's been weird enough. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I just hope all of you will stick with it when we rehearse in person, because I guarantee you it is such a different experience to sing together with the other voices. It's quite magical. And I've missed that part greatly, the singing together and breathing together, which is just incredible when you're with the chorus and breathing as one. It's very unifying and quite a spiritual experience really for me. So I missed it terribly, but we do what we can do. So I hope you will all return when we're doing this. I don't know about you, Molly, because you'd have a long ways to come, but we need to figure out a way to keep you connected with us virtually somehow. That would be good. Well, we're almost at the end. The last question was just kind of a fluff question, but I was just interested in getting to know you better and wondering, when you're not singing or working or going to school, what do you like to do?
I'll go. Well, let's see. I watch a lot of TV and movies because that's really where my heart is. Media studies, that's what I want to teach. If I get back into academia, it's what I like to write about when I don't have terrible writer's block. I've been working on my master's thesis off and on for like 6 years now. It's bad. It's very overdue. But I especially like watching true crime. That's the group that I run where I got the notice about Sistrum in the first place, and I like true crime podcasts. If I'm not singing or watching something, I've got a podcast in my ear, most likely. So if you ever need a recommendation, and it's not just true crime, I do listen to other things too. I love to read. I read a lot, or I did before COVID, but weirdly, despite having a lot of time for it, I have that brain fog that I think a lot of people are familiar with. It's made it kind of hard to follow through. So I haven't finished nearly as many books as I thought I would through all of this so far, but I do still love to do it, and I still buy it like I'm reading them like I used to. So my shelves are overflowing. And I picked up embroidery since the pandemic started, and I found that I'm really, really enjoying that. It's really nice to kind of give that attention to detail to something while also not having to think very critically. So it's very engaging, but I'm also not continuing to wear my brain out at the end of the day, if that makes sense. So that's been a lot of fun.
Nice. Anyone else?
I'll go. Well, I mean, as you can imagine, my kids keep me pretty busy. And that is a lot of fun. So I can call that, that's what I do in my spare time, just playing with them. And my daughter actually has been playing Suzuki violin for about almost 2 years now, so a year and a half. So she's, playing Bach and she's jamming. And so that's fun to kind of not really be her teacher, because that would be bad probably, but to like kind of be her teacher. And so we're having fun with that. And when the pandemic's done, my son wants to play piano. So we'll have 2 Suzuki kiddos, and it's going to be insane, but it will be really great. And then other than that, pre-kids, my husband and I liked to backpack a lot and hike and camp. And we do a lot of camping and hiking with the kids, but I'm excited for them to be old enough that we can go backpacking again and take them into mountains and do the real trips. And so, yeah, that, and I don't know, baking. I like to bake and then give it away to everybody, because otherwise I'll eat all of it. And then that's sad. So yeah.
That's why I don't bake for that very reason.
Because I love it. I love sweets. And
Mm.
so I would just be like, ooh, especially pandemic. Like, I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna make these cookies and then I give it to people who will take it. It doesn't have COVID on it. There you go. Like, so.
Well, I'll unless Rebecca. Well, anyway, I'll go. But I don't know if I'm really gonna answer the question, but I do want to share like maybe two other related or not related things, regardless, just meaningful things. Hobbies. So obviously folk music is something that I still play. But because of the pandemic, like Glenna said with reading, I have really lost a lot of interest in playing music, which is something that used to be extremely vital to my life. Also, side note, Glenna, I think, did you also used to lead a feminist book club?
I do. I
Or
do
you still
still.
do? Oh, cool. I at one point was in the Facebook group for that, but I left it, I think, so I always had the intention of coming and participating, but sorry, I never did. Anyway, that's very cool.
We're still meeting virtually if you want back in.
Oh, time, time, even though I have a lot well, anyway, thank you.
Yeah, fair.
But anyway, yeah, so I've lost interest in a lot of the things that like make me feel like who I am, like who are central to my identity. And throughout the pandemic, I've tried all like the trend things that people do, like sourdough, which are now I have moldy sourdough starters in my fridge. I've like crocheting, but I'm like struggling to find things that like make me feel better about dealing with this world. But I will say, like, Sistrum has kind of like filled that hole in a way that again surprised me, and has like kind of given me stability that every week I know we'll be meeting, and even if I don't want to go, even if I'm really tired, and even if I'm like slacking off the whole chorus, there's something to be said about the stability, and there's something that I know I'm gonna miss now with not having that. And then the second thing that the second and last thing that I wanted to share is that I think I'm really thankful for either the purposeful or serendipitous choice on Meg's behalf of using voice as the theme for these songs, because one of the first experiences I had with like the first couple of rehearsals in the fall was kind of remembering like that I have a voice. I live alone in a really small apartment, and I think partially because of loneliness, partially because like as a woman in society, or just like someone who's not a cis hetero man, it's easy to forget that you have a voice and that you have a presence. And so in singing these songs and being forced to sing these songs, because I want to, and also just warm-ups, just the act of like using my voice loudly has kind of been really powerful. And that's not to say that there are also times that I'm like mumbling along like, oh well, but I think Sistrum has just been a really big reminder of like I truly I do have a voice and I can use it, and it's like also very powerful to use it with other people at the same time, even if I can't hear them. So
Thank you. That was well said.
Mhm.
Rebecca, would you like to chime in here?
Oh, I'll chime in. Well, I mean, I don't really look it, but I do like to run. I also enjoy martial arts. We're just sort of starting to come back to that. Obviously, there was quite a while where we couldn't do it. And my master, Andy, bless his heart, he was trying to teach us over the Zoom, which got really interesting when you're in your house. And I also live alone, and it's like, okay, I can't even drag in some random non-martial arts person in my house to practice on. It's just me, So, but we were, we did that for a while, and after a while, we all got Zoom fatigued from that. So we just took a few months off, but now we're actually starting to meet up again, and that's sometimes you just gotta do something purely physical for a while. And that's probably it for me, is the martial arts and the running. It's kind of nice to just go outside and not think about much of anything except, you know, keeping your breathing right, and ooh, look at the pretty birdie and the deer, and yeah. I do like to read. I'm too old to admit to this. Ah, darn it, I'm gonna do it anyhow. I like to play video games, just the Zelda games, not really anything else, but I love Zelda games. I can't wait for Breath of the Wild 2. I am wildly excited. I like to paint and draw. I did that in high school, loved it. Adulthood kind of let that get away from me for quite a while, and now I'm starting to do it again, and I kind of suck now, but but it's been a blessing. Yes, they are. Yeah. The kids today, they just don't know.
Or the oldies like me, you know, video games came way after I was an adult, like way after. So I'm like so out of it when it comes to video
Gotta
games.
find the right game.
I don't have a clue.
CJ, can I ask, what are your hobbies outside of Sistrum?
Yeah.
Oh yes, well, I like to, in the summer or warm weather, I like to garden. I like to swim. I swim every day in the summer. I like to walk, and especially during the pandemic, I really got into walking. Like even in the winter, I was walking most days, and I finally got a warm enough coat where I could feel comfortable even in the really cold doing it. But I like walking out in nature. The Japanese call that forest bathing, and I've always loved that expression because that's what it feels like to me. And I like to read, although Glenna, I can identify with so much of what you all are saying. Glenna, the same thing happened to me. I love to read. I don't know what happened to me during the pandemic. I have stacks of books and stacks of things on my Kindle, and I didn't read nearly as much as I thought I would with all this time. It's crazy. But I do read still some. I think I was too busy binging on Netflix because I do quite a bit of that. And I do enjoy movies and
That was all of us.
that was, yeah, part of it. And what else do I like to do? Oh, I like to try out new recipes. I like to cook, not bake. I'm a terrible baker, but I love to cook and I like to try out new things. I hardly ever repeat anything. I just keep trying new recipes all the time. I cook for my wife, who I am married. We've been together 32 years and married since 2014, and she doesn't cook, so I do all the cooking. And she eats, she's so sweet. She loves everything I make, so it's very encouraging. So I do that, and I volunteer. I volunteer at the food bank. I've been doing that for quite a few years, and I enjoy that too. And I kept doing it during the pandemic because there was such a need for volunteers. So that's pretty much what I do. Keeps me busy. So before we end, is there anything anybody wants to say about Sistrum or your experience or anything before we wind up? Or have you said everything you would like to say?
I'm just really grateful that you all found a way to persist through the pandemic and found a way to keep meeting, and you know, felt comfortable enough with even the new format to invite new folks in, because our Wednesday night rehearsals have been a real bright spot for me, even on days where I'm really exhausted and like, oh God, I don't really want to get on another Zoom call. But then singing together and, you know, engaging my breath and using my voice, like Molly was saying, is just really, you know, it feels good even if you're really exhausted. And I'm actually disabled and I struggle with chronic pain, which has gotten a lot worse through the pandemic because I'm moving a lot less. So I'm usually pretty exhausted at the end of every day. So 7 o'clock comes around and I'm like, oh, I'd rather be crawling into bed, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it anyway. And I'm always glad that I do. It helps get through that middle of the week sort of slump, you know? So I'm really grateful to everyone for sticking together and still still doing this through this unprecedented time and inviting us in.
Ditto to that.
We're so glad that you all came and joined us even during this time, you know, and like I said, we really hope that you will come back when we're together, because I can't explain to you how different an experience it is to be together in person and to be able to perform. It's an incredible experience. So hopefully you'll all return. Anybody else wants to chime in before we hang up?
I think I just wanted to say something real quick, just from the perspective of being a director of sorts of music, that even with the first rehearsal, sorry, my computer keeps dinging. The first rehearsal, it was apparent that what Meg is doing is fantastic. And I see that she does that, you know, like I have never met her in person actually. But I see that what she's doing with Sistrum is fantastic, but it's also, oh my goodness, it's also it's like really ding. It's also a two-way street. And I understand that too, in that the members, and, you know, for instance, CJ, you've been with it for 22 years. The members, you know, are what will continue, and Meg may move on, you know, and it's that group that will continue. And that is so special. And to have that relationship between the director and the members is something that I can tell from the internet. And I think that's really special. And so that is something that I noticed right away. It doesn't come every day. I've been in a lot of groups. So yeah, kudos to the members and to Meg. It's pretty awesome.
I think that's very true. I mean, there is a big transfer of energy between director and chorus if you're really connected. And I feel that we do have that with Meg. And I'm glad it came through, even, you know, virtually. It's hard for me to tell because I've been singing so long and I just miss it in person so much that mostly I was whining all year about what it was like, you know, to sing virtually and not really grooving on it. But I'm thrilled to hear that you've all had such positive experiences despite all of that. It makes me feel really good about it and kind of wishing we were still going on Wednesday nights. So I will miss it this summer. So we have to all practice, just keep going. Well, thank you really so much for taking the time to do this. I know some of you have been on Zoom for other things today. And Molly, I know you came from a class, so I really appreciate your taking the time to do this. I appreciate it. And it's really good to get to know you guys. So when I do see you next time in person sometime, I'll actually know something about you. So that will feel good. So thanks so much. And I hope you guys have a great summer.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, you too.
It's been nice to like get to know you all as well, even in this short time. So thank you.
Yep, thank you so much. We'll see you in the fall. See you in August.
What happens when a woman takes vows?